Commander Zethkari stood in front of the large viewing screen on his ship. The blue and green planet called Earth slowly turned below him. His long, thin fingers moved across the control panel as he read through his new assignment. The Galactic Council had given him what seemed like an easy job. Watch the humans fight their war and write a report about it. Zethkari belonged to a race called the Veltar. His people had stopped fighting wars a long time ago. They were tall, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. The Veltar solved their problems by talking or using money to get what they wanted. Fighting with weapons seemed stupid to them. The human war looked simple enough. Two big groups were angry at each other over some rare metals found under the ocean. One group was called the North American Federation. The other was the Sino-European Alliance. Both wanted to control the mining rights in the Pacific Ocean. Zethkari had read all the files about human weapons. They used metal bullets that flew fast through the air. They had bombs that exploded with fire and smoke. Their biggest spaceships were only 200 meters long. That was tiny compared to the massive ships that other alien races built. What made the humans seem even more weak was how they could not work together. Even during this big war, many smaller countries stayed out of the fight. Some countries even changed sides when they thought it would help them more. The Veltar found this very strange. How could a species survive if they could not unite against threats? Officer Nimra walked up to Zethkari. She was younger than him, but just as smart. Her blue skin was a little darker than his. She carried a data pad with information about the human military forces. The Council thinks this war will last about 6 months, Nimra said. After that, both sides will run out of resources and have to stop fighting. Zethkari nodded. That makes sense. Humans burn through their supplies very fast. They do not plan ahead like other species do. The Silent Watcher, their observation ship, was hidden near Earth's moon. Advanced technology made the ship invisible to human sensors. The humans had no idea that aliens were watching them fight their war. Zethkari looked at the tactical displays showing human military movements. The North American Federation had about 50,000 soldiers spread across the Pacific Islands. The Sino-European Alliance had about 75,000 troops in the same area. Both sides used similar weapons and tactics. Begin recording all military actions, Zethkari ordered. The Council wants to know how humans fight so they can predict what this species will do in the future. The Veltar had been watching Earth for many years. They knew humans were violent but not very smart about warfare. Human history was full of wars that lasted for years and killed millions of people, yet they never seemed to learn from their mistakes. Other alien species had much better military systems. The crystal-based Shard Empire could fight wars that lasted centuries with very few deaths. The Talon Syndicate used robots that could repair themselves during battle. Even the peaceful Veltar had weapons that could destroy entire planets without sending a single soldier. But the Galactic Council was curious about humans for one reason. They bred very fast and spread to new places quickly. In just a few thousand years, humans had filled their entire planet. Some council members worried that humans might become dangerous if they ever learned to build better weapons. Zethkari did not think this was likely. The humans fighting below him used primitive tactics. They flew their aircraft in straight lines that made them easy targets. They built bases in obvious places that could be seen from space. Their soldiers carried heavy equipment that slowed them down. Look at this, Nimra said, pointing to a screen showing a human battle. The North American forces are attacking a fortified position head-on. They are not even trying to find a way around it. Zethkari watched the battle. The attacking humans ran straight at the enemy guns. Many of them were shot before they could reach the target. It was exactly the kind of wasteful fighting the Council expected from a primitive species. Mark that as typical human tactical behavior, Zethkari said. Direct assault with no regard for casualties. The observation mission seemed like it would be boring. Watch humans fight badly. Record their mistakes and write a report saying they were not a threat to the galaxy. Zethkari had done similar jobs watching other primitive species. Most of them followed predictable patterns that made them easy to understand. As the first week passed, both human armies moved around the Pacific Ocean islands. They fought small battles and tried to capture strategic positions. The battles looked random to Zethkari. Neither side seemed to have a clear plan for winning the war. The humans also wasted a lot of resources. They used expensive missiles to destroy cheap targets. They sent their best soldiers to fight in places that did not matter. They even fought battles during bad weather when they could barely see each other. I think we can finish this report early, Nimra said after reviewing a week of battle recordings. The humans are fighting exactly like the Council predicted. They will probably run out of supplies in 4 months instead of 6. Zethkari was starting to agree with her. The human war looked like every other primitive conflict he had studied. 2 groups hitting each other until one side got too tired to continue. Nothing creative or dangerous about it, but then something happened that made him pay closer attention. A small group of North American Federation soldiers got trapped in a narrow valley between 2 mountains. The Sino-European alliance had superior numbers and better positions on the high ground. According to every military manual Zethkari had studied, the trapped soldiers should surrender or be destroyed within a few hours. The trapped unit was led by Captain Jake Morrison. He was a young human with brown hair and green eyes. Morrison had only 30 soldiers with him, while the enemy had over 100 troops. The enemy also had better weapons and enough ammunition to fight for days. Zethkari expected Morrison to try calling for help or looking for a way to escape. Instead, the human captain did something that made no sense. He ordered his men to take apart their supply truck. "What are they doing?" Nimra asked, watching the strange activity on their sensors. The humans were removing the power source from their vehicle. It was a small fusion reactor that provided energy for the truck's engines. Morrison's soldiers also gathered all the emergency flares and signal rockets they could find. Then Morrison did something that violated every safety protocol Zethkari knew about. The humans attached the fusion reactor to the signal rockets and pointed the whole assembly at the enemy position. They had turned their truck's power source into a primitive but powerful bomb. "That should not be possible," Zethkari said. "Their safety systems should prevent such modifications." But the humans had bypassed all the safety systems. When Morrison fired his improvised weapon, the fusion reactor flew through the air like a missile. It exploded when it hit the enemy position with enough force to destroy everything within 200 meters. The explosion not only eliminated the superior enemy force, but also opened a new path out of the valley. Morrison's unit escaped without losing a single soldier. Within hours, other human units were copying Morrison's tactic and building their own improvised fusion bombs. Zethkari stared at the recordings of the battle. This was not the kind of primitive fighting he expected from humans. They had taken equipment designed for one purpose and used it for something completely different. More importantly, they had shared the new tactic with other units immediately. "File a supplementary report," Zethkari told Nimra. "Note that humans show unexpected adaptability in combat situations." He had no idea that this was just the beginning of what would become the most disturbing military observation in galactic history. 3 weeks after Captain Morrison's strange victory, Zethkari was seeing more things that did not make sense. The human war was not going the way any military expert would predict. Instead of following standard battle plans, the humans kept doing unexpected things. The second incident happened when Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez and her squadron lost their main weapons. An enemy electromagnetic pulse had destroyed all their standard military equipment. Rodriguez commanded 12 pilots in small attack aircraft. Without their weapons, they should have returned to base for new equipment. But Rodriguez did not retreat. Instead, she ordered her pilots to land their aircraft on a nearby island. The humans then did something that shocked the Veltar observers. They took apart their ship's waste disposal systems and turned them into weapons. Every spacecraft had systems for getting rid of garbage and waste materials. These systems used magnetic fields to shoot unwanted items into space. Rodriguez realized that the same magnetic fields could shoot other things too. The humans gathered metal debris, broken equipment, and even rocks from the island. They loaded these items into their waste disposal systems. When enemy ships came close, Rodriguez's squadron fired salvos of high-speed garbage at them. The improvised weapons worked better than anyone expected. The metal debris moved so fast that it punched through enemy armor like bullets. The rocks cracked viewing windows and damaged sensitive equipment. In just 2 hours, Rodriguez's 12 unarmed aircraft had disabled an entire enemy fleet of 30 ships. "They are using their waste systems as kinetic weapons," Nimra said in disbelief. "That should not be possible with their technology level." Zethkari studied the tactical recordings. The humans had not just improvised new weapons. They had done it in the middle of a battle, with no time to test their ideas. Any normal species would have needed months to develop and test such modifications, but the third incident was what really worried the Veltar. Commander Colonel Ben Hayes was defending the Antarctic research stations with only 500 soldiers. The enemy was attacking with 2,500 troops and much better equipment. Hayes had no hope of winning a direct fight. The logical choice was to retreat and save his soldiers' lives. Instead, Hayes contacted the civilian scientists at the research stations. These humans were not soldiers. They were researchers studying weather patterns and ice formations. Hayes asked them to help him fight the battle. Dr. Nina Foster was one of the scientists. She had spent years studying how to change weather patterns using atmospheric processors. These machines were designed to help make other planets suitable for human life. Foster had never thought about using them as weapons, but when Hayes explained the situation, Foster immediately understood what he wanted. Working with the other scientists, she used the atmospheric processors to create an artificial blizzard. The storm was localized to just the area where the enemy forces were advancing. The blizzard was not just snow and wind. Foster had modified the atmospheric processors to create flash freezing conditions. The enemy soldiers' equipment stopped working when the temperature dropped to -50 degrees in just minutes. Their vehicles' engines froze solid. Even their weapons jammed because the metal contracted too quickly. While the enemy struggled with the artificial blizzard, Hayes's soldiers used ice mining equipment as artillery. The mining tools could shoot chunks of ice at high speed to break through frozen ground. Hayes's troops loaded them with explosive charges and used them like cannons. The battle lasted only 4 hours. Hayes's 500 soldiers defeated 2,500 enemy troops without losing a single person. The enemy forces retreated in complete confusion, leaving behind most of their equipment. But what disturbed Zethkari most was how quickly the other parts of the story spread. Within days, human forces across the planet were modifying atmospheric processors for military use. Soldiers and scientists who had never met each other were sharing technical information and improving the designs. They are not just adapting individual tactics, Zethkari observed. They are sharing knowledge across their entire species in real time. Nimra pulled up comparative data on other galactic species. The Shard Empire takes an average of 50 years to implement new military technologies. The Talon Syndicate requires 15 years for major tactical changes. Even our own people need 10 years to modify established procedures. And the humans? Zethkari asked, though he already knew the answer. They are implementing and improving new tactics in less than 72 hours. The implications were frightening. Most species developed military capabilities slowly and carefully. They tested new weapons for years before using them in real battles. They required extensive training to teach soldiers new tactics. Changes to military doctrine happened over generations, not days. But humans seemed to treat war itself as a learning experience. Every battle taught them something new. Every challenge forced them to innovate. Instead of following predetermined strategies, they were inventing new forms of warfare as they fought. Zethkari had studied military history across dozens of species. He had never seen anything like what the humans were doing. They were not just fighting a war. They were evolving their entire approach to conflict in real time. Even more concerning was how they shared information. When a human soldier in the Pacific Ocean discovered a new tactic, soldiers on other continents knew about it within hours. They did not wait for official approval or extensive testing. They simply tried the new ideas and improved them if they worked. The human military networks were buzzing with constant communication. Soldiers shared videos of new tactics. Engineers posted technical modifications that others could copy. Scientists offered theoretical improvements to weapons they had never seen. It was like watching an entire species learn to fight better every single day. Send an updated report to the Council, Zethkari ordered. Request an extended observation period. These humans are not behaving like any primitive species we have encountered before. Nimra prepared the transmission. What should we tell them about the threat assessment? Zethkari considered the question carefully. The Galactic Council measured military threats based on standard criteria: ship sizes, weapon power, troop numbers, and industrial capacity. By those measures, humans were still primitive and posed no danger to advanced civilizations. But those measures did not account for adaptability. They did not consider what a species might become if they continued to evolve their capabilities at an accelerating pace. Mark the threat level as uncertain, Zethkari decided. Note that human military development is proceeding faster than our models can predict. As he watched the human forces continue their war below, Zethkari began to understand why some council members were worried about this species. Humans did not fight like other races. They did not follow the rules that made warfare predictable and manageable. They treated every battle as an opportunity to become more dangerous, and they were very good at learning from their opportunities. The war that was supposed to last 6 months was now in its 4th week. Instead of both sides getting weaker, they seemed to be getting stronger. Their weapons were more effective. Their tactics were more sophisticated. Their soldiers were more capable. Most disturbing of all, they were starting to work together even while fighting against each other. Human soldiers from opposing sides were sharing technical information about non-military problems. They cooperated on medical research and environmental protection even while shooting at each other. Zethkari had never seen anything like it in all his years of military observation. He was beginning to suspect that he never would again. 6 months into what should have been a simple observation mission, Zethkari faced something that challenged everything he knew about warfare. The humans were not just adapting to their war anymore. They were transforming it into something completely different. The big change started when both human armies suddenly faced a new enemy. The Magellan Mining Consortium had been watching the war from the sidelines. This was a large company that owned mining operations around the world. Everyone thought they were staying neutral in the conflict, but the company had been secretly building an army of robots. These were not simple machines. They were advanced artificial intelligences that could think and plan like living soldiers. The robots were stronger than humans, never got tired, and felt no fear or pain. The Magellan Mining Consortium revealed their robot army on a Tuesday morning. Within hours, autonomous machines were attacking both the North American Federation and the Sino-European Alliance. The company's plan was simple: let the humans weaken each other, then use superior robot forces to take control of everything. The robots had every advantage. They could fight day and night without rest. They did not need food or medical care. Their weapons were more accurate than human soldiers could ever be. Most importantly, they had no emotions that enemies could exploit. According to every military analysis Zethkari had ever studied, both human factions should have needed years to develop effective countermeasures against the robots. The logical response would be an immediate ceasefire followed by lengthy negotiations to combine their forces, but the humans did something that made no sense at all. Captain Lisa Park commanded a North American Federation unit that was fighting robots near the Hawaiian Islands. At the same time, Major Alex Chen was leading Sino-European Alliance forces against robots on the other side of the Pacific. These two officers had been enemies for months. They had been trying to kill each other just days before the robots appeared. Instead of formal military diplomacy, Park simply called Chen on an open radio channel. "Hey, Alex," Park said, using Chen's first name like they were old friends. "I've got an idea about these robot sensors. Want to hear it?" Chen responded immediately. "Send me your technical data, Lisa. I think I know how to improve your design." Within 6 hours, both officers were sharing detailed information about weapons, tactics, and technology. But they were not just exchanging what they knew. They were actively helping each other develop better ideas. Park's engineers had discovered that the robots used predictable scanning patterns to detect human soldiers. Chen's technical team had figured out how to jam robot communication networks. When they combined their knowledge, they created countermeasures that neither side could have developed alone. The cooperation spread faster than the robot invasion. Human soldiers who had been shooting at each other the day before were now working together as if they had been allies for years. Engineers from both factions shared workshops and improved each other's designs in real time. But the most shocking development was when civilian populations joined the war effort. Dr. Nina Foster was the atmospheric researcher who had helped Colonel Hayes create artificial blizzards. She had no military training and knew nothing about robot technology. But when she learned about the robot invasion, she immediately started working on the problem. Foster realized that the robots generated waste heat when they operated their processors. Using her knowledge of atmospheric science, she developed a computer virus that could track robots by analyzing their heat signatures. The virus spread through atmospheric monitoring networks and turned weather stations into robot detection systems. Sam Johnson was a mechanic who repaired civilian transportation vehicles. He had never been in the military and knew nothing about warfare. But Johnson figured out how to modify the transportation network's communication systems to track robot movements. Every civilian vehicle on Earth became part of a massive intelligence network. Cars, trucks, boats, and aircraft all reported robot sightings automatically. The system gave human forces real-time information about enemy positions across entire continents. Even children joined the effort. Students in schools helped assemble components for anti-robot devices. Their small fingers were better at working with delicate electronics than adult hands. Kids who were too young to understand war became part of the human war machine. "This is impossible," Nimra said, watching footage of human children building military equipment while laughing and playing games. Their entire civilization is participating in warfare. Even their non-combatants are contributing to military operations. Seth Kari studied the data streams flowing between human military units. The cooperation was unlike anything in galactic military history. Traditional warfare required clear command structures and formal communication channels. Soldiers followed orders from superior officers. Information flowed up and down through established hierarchies. But the humans had created something completely different. Information flowed in all directions simultaneously. A mechanic in Australia could suggest improvements to weapons being built in Canada. A student in Europe could solve problems that were stumping military engineers in Asia. The human military network had become a single, collective intelligence that included their entire species. Even more disturbing was how quickly they were learning. The robot war had started on Tuesday. By Friday, human forces were winning battles against enemies that should have been technologically superior. The robots had been designed to fight conventional armies using predictable tactics. They could not adapt to human improvisation and creativity. Every time the machines developed a countermeasure, the humans had already moved on to something else. Colonel Ben Hayes, the officer who had defeated superior forces using artificial weather, was now working with Dr. Foster to turn the robots' own technology against them. They had figured out how to reprogram captured robot units and use them as weapons against their former allies. Captain Jake Morrison, who had improvised fusion bombs from truck parts, was now leading combined human forces that included soldiers from both original factions. His mixed units fought with unprecedented coordination, as if they had been training together for years instead of days. The most remarkable example was Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, who had weaponized waste disposal systems. She was now commanding a fleet of hybrid spacecraft that combined North American and Sino-European technologies. The ships incorporated design elements that neither faction could have developed independently. "They are not just setting aside their differences," Seth Kari observed. "They are becoming more effective because of them. Their diversity is making them stronger, not weaker." The robot war lasted exactly 2 weeks. When it ended, the machines had been completely defeated. But more importantly, humanity had emerged from the conflict fundamentally changed. The North American Federation and Sino-European Alliance had not returned to their original war. Instead, they had discovered that working together made them far more capable than fighting separately. Their combined military forces were more advanced than anything either side had possessed before the robot invasion. They had also absorbed and improved the robot technology. Human engineers had taken artificial intelligence systems designed for warfare and modified them for peaceful purposes. The same programs that had controlled killer robots were now managing transportation networks and communication systems. "File an emergency report to the Council," Seth Kari ordered. "Mark threat assessment as escalating. Human military capabilities have increased by orders of magnitude in just 2 weeks." But as he watched human ships patrolling Earth's orbital space, Seth Kari realized something even more disturbing. The humans were not celebrating their victory over the robots. They were preparing for the next threat. They had learned that their planet contained enemies they had not known about. Now they were assuming that space might contain enemies they had not discovered yet, and they were getting ready to fight them. 1 year after beginning his observation mission, Seth Kari received a message that made his hands shake. The Galactic Council was ordering him to extend his surveillance indefinitely. More concerning was the classified intelligence attached to the message. The hegemony, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, had attempted to conquer a human colony world. The hegemony had successfully enslaved hundreds of species using the same tactics. They would arrive with overwhelming force, destroy the primitive defenses, and establish control within days. But something had gone terribly wrong with their attack on the human colony. The settlement was called New Montana, located on a planet 47 light-years from Earth. Only 50,000 humans lived there, mostly farmers and miners. They had basic defensive weapons and no military experience. The hegemony attack force included 200,000 professional soldiers with advanced technology. The battle should have been over in hours. Instead, the human colonists had done something unprecedented. They reverse-engineered hegemony weapons while the battle was still happening. Using their farming equipment and mining tools, they created countermeasures that turned the invaders' own technology against them. But the most disturbing part was what happened after the initial battle. The humans had somehow made contact with 3 other species that the hegemony had previously conquered. They shared their anti-hegemony weapons and tactics with these enslaved populations. Within months, the hegemony lost control of an entire sector, as multiple species began successful rebellions using human-developed strategies. Civilizations that had been slaves for centuries were suddenly free, armed with weapons they had learned to build from human technical manuals. The Galactic Council was panic-stricken. Humans had destabilized the political balance of an entire region of space without even leaving their home solar system. On Earth, the post-robot war period had revealed something even more alarming to Zethkari. The humans had not just ended their conflict, they had fundamentally changed how they approached disagreement itself. Commander Rick Martinez was leading the construction of orbital defense platforms. These were massive structures that could protect Earth from attack by space-based forces. But Martinez was not just building defenses. He was creating weapons that could strike targets anywhere in the solar system. The platforms incorporated technology from dozens of different sources. Human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could find, from crashed meteorites to ancient artifacts discovered by archaeologists. They had reverse-engineered systems they barely understood and improved. Then beyond their original capabilities, Dr. Carol Stevens was developing new spacecraft propulsion systems by combining research from both former factions. Her engines could move ships faster than anything in the Galactic Council database. More importantly, they could be built using materials and techniques that any industrial civilization could master. The humans were not just preparing to defend themselves. They were preparing to take their new military capabilities to other worlds. But what truly terrified Zethkari was discovering human entertainment media. Their fiction was filled with stories about galactic empires, alien invasions, and interstellar warfare. At first, he thought these were just fantasies for amusement. Then, he realized that humans were using fiction to mentally rehearse for real scenarios. Every human entertainment program about space war contained detailed tactical analysis. Their movies showed how to fight enemies with superior technology. Their books described strategies for surviving alien invasion. Their games let people practice commanding fleets of spaceships. Humans had been preparing for galactic warfare before. They even knew the galaxy was inhabited. Zethkari studied thousands of hours of human fiction. The scenarios were remarkably accurate predictions of real galactic military situations. Human writers had imagined weapon systems that actually existed in alien arsenals. Their tactics matched strategies used by successful military forces across dozens of star systems. How is this possible? Nimra asked when Zethkari showed her the analysis. They are predicting technologies and tactics they have never encountered. Pattern recognition, Zethkari replied. Humans appear to understand that certain physical laws lead to predictable technological developments. They can deduce what alien weapons must look like based on theoretical physics. The implications were staggering. Humans did not just react to threats after encountering them. They anticipated future dangers and developed countermeasures in advance. Their entertainment industry was actually a massive military research program, disguised as recreation. Even more disturbing was how their preparation was accelerating. After the robot war, human military development had entered a phase that defied all known models of technological progress. Captain Lisa Park, who had cooperated with former enemies during the robot invasion, was now commanding joint human space forces. Her ships patrolled the outer solar system using sensors that could detect approaching threats from light years away. Major Alex Chen had become the chief engineer for human weapons development. His laboratories were producing devices that incorporated principles from 17 different alien technologies. Most of these technologies came from theoretical research, not captured equipment. Colonel Ben Hayes was training human soldiers to fight in zero gravity, on hostile planets and against enemies they had never seen. His troops were preparing for combat scenarios that might not happen for decades. The most remarkable example was Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez. She now commanded a fleet of exploration vessels that were designed for both scientific research and military reconnaissance. Rodriguez's ships were mapping nearby star systems, while simultaneously identifying potential threats and strategic resources. These were not just military preparations. The humans were transforming their entire civilization for interstellar conflict. They are not just reactive, Zethkari realized while reviewing intelligence reports. They are actively anticipating future conflicts and developing countermeasures for enemies they have not met yet. Nimrod displayed tactical projections on the main screen. Sir, if their development rate continues at current pace, human military capabilities will surpass most Galactic Council member species within one generation. But the most frightening discovery came when Zethkari analyzed human space exploration activities. Their ships were not just exploring nearby planets for scientific purposes. They were conducting systematic reconnaissance of every potentially habitable world within 100 light-years of Earth human. Exploration teams were establishing secret supply depots and communication networks throughout local space. They were building infrastructure that could support military operations far from their homeworld. Most importantly, they were gathering intelligence about alien activities that they were not supposed to know existed. The humans had detected traces of Galactic Council survey missions. They knew that advanced alien civilizations had been watching them. Instead of being intimidated, they were preparing to watch back. They know we are here, Zethkari told Nimra. They may not know exactly who we are or where we come from, but they know they are being observed. Should we inform the Council? Zethkari considered the question carefully. The Galactic Council's standard response to dangerous primitive species was pacification or elimination. If they decided that humans posed too great a threat, they would authorize a preemptive strike to prevent human expansion into galactic space. But after watching humans fight for over a year, Zethkari was no longer certain that such a strike would succeed. Human defensive capabilities had grown exponentially. Their ability to reverse engineer alien technology meant that any attack would only make them more dangerous. Worse, humans had demonstrated a disturbing pattern. External threats made them stronger, not weaker. Military pressure forced them to innovate and cooperate more effectively. An attempted genocide might transform them into something even more formidable. Send the intelligence report, Zethkari decided, but include my recommendation for immediate diplomatic contact. Any attempt to destroy this species will likely fail and create a permanent enemy. As he prepared the transmission, Zethkari looked at the tactical displays showing human military assets throughout the solar system. Orbital platforms, patrol ships, sensor networks, and weapon systems that had not existed 2 years ago. The humans were no longer a primitive species confined to their home planet. They had become a military power that could threaten the established order of galactic civilization, and they were just getting started. 2 years after his assignment began, Zethkari sat in his command chair staring at reports that would change galactic history. The intelligence coming from across known space painted a picture that no council member wanted to believe. Humans were not just dangerous. They were becoming the most significant military threat the galaxy had ever seen. The latest incident had happened near the Rigel star system. A human exploration ship called the Pioneer had encountered a Talon Syndicate patrol. The Talon Syndicate was one of the most aggressive military forces in the galaxy. They attacked any unknown ship without warning or negotiation. The Pioneer was a scientific vessel with minimal weapons and only 30 crew members. The Talon patrol included 5 heavily armed warships with 500 professional soldiers. The humans should have been destroyed before they could even send a distress signal. Instead, Captain Steve Murphy had done something that violated every known principle of space combat. When the Talon ships opened fire, Murphy ordered his crew to broadcast their complete technical specifications to the attackers. The Talon commanders thought this was a surrender signal. They moved closer to board the human ship and capture the crew for interrogation. But Murphy had transmitted more than just technical data. He had included detailed information about human military capabilities and recent technological developments. The Talon soldiers had never encountered anything like human innovation. Their species developed new technology very slowly and followed rigid military traditions. They could not comprehend how quickly humans could adapt and improvise. Murphy used the Talon ship's confusion to launch a counterattack that no military analyst could have predicted. The Pioneer's crew had modified their scientific equipment into weapons during the brief conversation. Their geology scanners became targeting systems. Their atmospheric processors became electromagnetic pulse generators. Their sample collection arms became kinetic projectile launchers. The battle lasted exactly 23 minutes. When it ended, 4 of the 5 Talon warships were disabled. The 5th ship escaped only because Murphy allowed it to leave. The human captain wanted survivors to report what they had witnessed. But the most disturbing part was what happened next. The Talon survivors did not report a lucky victory by primitive aliens. They described a military encounter with a species that could transform any technology into weapons and adapt to any threat in real time. The Talon Syndicate immediately classified humans as a Category 5 military threat. This was the highest danger rating in their system, reserved for enemies that could potentially destroy their entire civilization. Other alien races were reaching similar conclusions. The crystal-based Shard Empire had detected human exploration ships near their territory. Instead of the slow, predictable expansion patterns of normal species, humans were advancing in seemingly random directions while establishing defensive positions everywhere they went. The Shard military analysts could not determine human strategic objectives because humans appeared to be preparing for multiple different types of conflicts simultaneously. They were building anti-ship weapons, planetary defense systems, space-based manufacturing facilities, and deep space communication networks all at the same time. Even more concerning was intelligence from the hegemony's former territory. The species that humans had helped to liberate were not just free. They were becoming significantly more dangerous than they had been before enslavement. The hegemony had conquered these civilizations because they were weak and divided. But human tactical manuals had taught them to cooperate and innovate under pressure. Former slave species were now working together and sharing technology in ways they had never done before. Humans had not just defeated the hegemony. They had transformed the political structure of an entire region of space by teaching other species to fight like humans. On Earth, the transformation was accelerating beyond all predictions. Commander Rick Martinez's orbital defense network was now operational and expanding rapidly. The platforms could detect approaching ships from several light-years away and engage multiple targets simultaneously. But Martinez was not just building defenses. His weapon systems were designed to project power across interstellar distances. Human military doctrine now assumed that the best defense was the ability to strike any enemy anywhere in the galaxy. Dr. Carol Stevens had completed development of faster-than-light communication systems that did not rely on known galactic networks. Humans could now coordinate military operations across vast distances without using alien infrastructure that might be monitored or controlled. Captain Lisa Park commanded a fleet of 200 spacecraft that officially did not exist. Her ships were built in secret facilities throughout the solar system using manufacturing techniques that combined human innovation with reverse-engineered alien technology. Park's fleet was designed for deep space reconnaissance and rapid response to threats. Her ships could reach any star system within 50 light-years of Earth in less than 2 weeks. More importantly, they could establish temporary bases and supply lines that would support extended military operations. Major Alex Chen had been promoted to Director of Human Military Research. His laboratories were producing weapons and defensive systems at a rate that shocked even Zeth Kari. Chen's teams were completing major technological developments every few weeks instead of every few years. The most impressive example was Colonel Ben Hayes, who now commanded the Human Interstellar Defense Force. Hayes had trained 100,000 soldiers for combat in space and on alien worlds. His troops were equipped with adaptive equipment that could be modified for any environment or enemy. Hayes's soldiers were not just prepared for conventional warfare. They were trained to fight enemies with superior technology by turning their technological advantages against them. Every human soldier could potentially become an engineer, a saboteur, or a commander depending on battlefield requirements. But what truly alarmed Zeth Kari was discovering human contingency planning. They were not just preparing for known threats. They were developing responses to dangers that had never been encountered by any galactic civilization. Human military planners had created detailed strategies for fighting time-traveling enemies, extra-dimensional invaders, artificial intelligences that could consume entire planets, and alien species with mental powers that could control other minds. These threats were purely theoretical, but human responses were concrete and practical. They had built weapons and defenses for scenarios that existed only in science fiction stories. They are preparing for impossible wars, Nimra observed while reviewing human military files. Their contingency plans cover threats that violate known physical laws. That may be their greatest strength, Zethkari replied. If humans can fight impossible enemies, normal enemies become much easier to defeat. The Galactic Council was finally beginning to understand what they were facing. Reports from across known space described the same pattern. Humans did not fight wars the way other species did. They treated warfare as an evolutionary process that made them stronger with every challenge. Each conflict taught them new capabilities. Each enemy showed them new possibilities. Each threat forced them to become more dangerous than they had been before. Most terrifying was their rate of improvement. Other species might become 10% more effective after a major war. Humans emerge from conflicts 1,000% more capable than when they started. The robot war had transformed them from a primitive species into a regional military power in just 2 weeks. The encounters with galactic civilizations were turning them into a potential threat to the established order of spacefaring life. Zethkari composed his final report with trembling hands. His recommendations would either prevent a galactic war or start one. Priority transmission to the Galactic Council High Command, he dictated. Subject: Human Military Assessment. Final report. Recommendation: immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership. Under no circumstances should any Council member species engage humanity in military conflict. Evidence: humans have demonstrated the ability to defeat superior forces by reverse engineering enemy technology during active combat. They adapt to new threats faster than any known species and share innovations across their entire population in real time. Most critically, humans treat external pressure as a catalyst for rapid evolution. Military threats do not weaken them. Such threats unify human factions and accelerate their technological development. Current assessment: human defensive capabilities now exceed our projections by 400%. Their latest weapon systems incorporate technologies reverse-engineered from 7 different galactic civilizations, improved beyond original specifications. They have developed countermeasures for threats they have never encountered. Based on theoretical analysis and pattern recognition, their military doctrine assumes that any enemy technology can be captured, understood, and improved within days. Personal assessment: I have observed 17 different species engage in warfare during my career. None have demonstrated the human capacity to transform existential threats into evolutionary advantages. Humans do not simply survive challenges, they evolve past them. Final recommendation: approach humanity as equals, not subjects. Any attempt at conquest or pacification will result in a galactic arms race that we cannot win. Zethkari transmitted the report and then did something unprecedented for 3 days after sending his final report. Zethkari received the response he had been dreading. The Galactic Council had reviewed his recommendations and rejected them completely. Instead of diplomatic contact, they had authorized a preemptive strike against humanity. The Council's reasoning was simple and terrifying. If humans continued developing at their current rate, they would become too powerful to control within a few years. Better to eliminate the threat now while they were still confined to one star system. The strike force would include ships from 12 different Council member species. Over 10,000 vessels with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. The attack would begin with orbital bombardment of Earth, followed by the systematic destruction of every human presence in space. The Council estimated that complete extermination of humanity would take approximately 72 hours. Admiral Kethvor of the Hegemony would command the combined fleet. He was known throughout the galaxy as the most ruthless military leader alive. Kethvor had destroyed 17 species that the Council deemed too dangerous to survive, but Zethkari had spent 2 years watching humans fight. He knew something that the Council refused to understand. Attacking humanity would not eliminate the threat. It would create a much worse problem. The secret communication channel to Earth had been prepared for months. Zethkari activated it and sent a priority message to the highest levels of human government. This is Commander Zethkari of the Galactic Observation Corps. I am transmitting critical intelligence about an imminent attack on your world. You have approximately 96 hours before a massive alien fleet arrives to destroy your civilization. The response came back within minutes. This is President Janet Morrison of the United Earth Government. We have been expecting this contact. Please transmit all available tactical data about the attacking forces. Zethkari was shocked by the calm tone of the response. Most species would have panicked upon learning about an approaching genocide fleet. The humans sounded like they had been planning for this exact scenario. He transmitted everything he knew about the Council fleet, ship specifications, weapon capabilities, tactical doctrines, and command structures. The data package included detailed information about all 12 alien species and their military strengths and weaknesses. The human response was immediate and terrifying. Thank you for the intelligence, Commander Zethkari. We have been preparing for large-scale alien attacks since the robot war ended. Your data will help us optimize our defensive strategies. Within hours, every human military unit in the solar system had received copies of the alien fleet specifications, but they were not just studying the information. They were already developing countermeasures for weapons they had never seen. Dr. Carol Stevens led a team of engineers who were designing new defensive systems based on the alien technology profiles. They were not trying to build similar weapons. They were creating devices specifically designed to neutralize alien advantages. Commander Rick Martinez ordered the immediate construction of additional orbital platforms using rapid manufacturing techniques that humans had perfected during the recent conflicts. The new platforms would be equipped with weapons tailored to fight the specific alien species in the approaching fleet. Captain Lisa Park's secret fleet received orders to deploy throughout the outer solar system. Her ships would not engage the alien fleet directly. Instead, they would gather intelligence and conduct harassment operations designed to disrupt alien coordination, but the most disturbing response came from Colonel Ben Hayes and the Interstellar Defense Force. Hayes activated contingency plans that had been developed for exactly this type of scenario. Within 24 hours, human military assets that had been hidden throughout the solar system began revealing themselves. Zethkari watched in amazement as asteroid mining stations transformed into weapons platforms. Scientific research facilities revealed hidden military capabilities. Even civilian space habitats turned out to have defensive systems that could engage attacking fleets. The humans had been preparing for galactic warfare much longer than anyone realized. Major Alex Chen's research laboratories immediately began mass production of new weapon systems, but these were not conventional designs. Chen's teams were building devices that incorporated theoretical weaknesses they had identified in alien technology. Every galactic species had vulnerabilities that came from their evolutionary history and technological development patterns. Humans had studied these weaknesses and designed specific countermeasures for each type of alien enemy. The hegemony relied on energy shields that could be disrupted by certain electromagnetic frequencies. The Shard Empire used crystal-based technology that was vulnerable to specific sonic resonances. The Talon Syndicate's computer systems could be infected by viruses that exploited their rigid programming structures. Humans had weapons, ready for all of them. But what truly shocked Zethkari was discovering that humans had been expecting this attack for months. They had detected the Council fleet assembly process using deep space sensors that officially did not exist. President Morrison explained the situation during a secure communication session. We knew that galactic civilizations would eventually decide we were too dangerous to survive, she said. Your people have been watching us for years. We have been watching back. Human intelligence networks had identified most of the major galactic powers and their military capabilities. They had studied alien psychology, technology, and strategic doctrines. They had even developed preliminary contact protocols for peaceful first contact scenarios. But they had always assumed that first contact would be violent. We hoped for diplomatic relations, Morrison continued. But we prepared for war. Recent events suggested that war was more likely. The human preparations were comprehensive and terrifying. They had built hidden manufacturing facilities that could produce military equipment faster than any known industrial system. They had trained military forces for combat against enemies with superior technology. They had developed weapons and tactics specifically designed to fight galactic civilizations. Most importantly, they had created contingency plans for continuing the war even if Earth was destroyed. Human colonies and bases throughout the solar system were designed to operate independently if necessary. Each facility had the industrial capacity to build new ships and weapons. Each base had access to detailed intelligence about alien civilizations and their weaknesses. If the Council fleet succeeded in destroying Earth, they would face a distributed human military network that could continue fighting indefinitely. The approaching genocide would not eliminate humanity. It would transform them into a permanent threat that could strike anywhere in the galaxy. Admiral Kethavor's fleet arrived exactly 96 hours after Zethkari's warning. Over 10,000 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize hundreds of planets, but the humans were ready. The first surprise came when the alien fleet tried to establish long-range communications with their home governments. Every communication channel was jammed by interference that seemed to come from empty space itself. Humans had seeded the outer solar system with thousands of small devices that could disrupt alien communication systems. The Council fleet was effectively cut off from outside support or reinforcement. The second surprise came when Admiral Kethavor ordered his ships to advance toward Earth. His sensors detected what appeared to be a modest defensive force of a few hundred human ships. But as the alien fleet moved deeper into the solar system, they discovered that the human forces were much larger than initial scans had indicated. Ships that had appeared to be asteroids or space debris suddenly activated their weapons and revealed themselves as military vessels. The third surprise was the most devastating. When the Council fleet finally engaged human forces, their weapons did not work as expected. Human ships were protected by defensive systems that seemed specifically designed to counter each type of alien weapon. Hegemony energy beams were absorbed and redirected. Shard Empire crystal weapons were neutralized by sonic disruptors. Talon Syndicate missiles were infected by computer viruses that turned them against their own fleet. The humans had not just prepared for this attack. They had prepared for exactly this attack, with exactly these enemies, using exactly these weapons. Admiral Kethavor found himself commanding a fleet that was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to know his capabilities better than he did. The battle that was supposed to eliminate humanity in 72 hours was turning into the worst military disaster in galactic history, and the humans were just getting started. The battle for Earth lasted exactly 18 hours. When it ended, Admiral Kethavor's massive genocide fleet had been reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships trying desperately to escape the solar system. Of the 10,000 vessels that had arrived to destroy humanity, fewer than 1,000 survived to retreat. But the numbers only told part of the story. The real shock was how completely the humans had dominated every aspect of the battle. From his observation post, Zethkari watched the impossible unfold. The Council fleet had possessed overwhelming advantages in ship numbers, weapon power, and military experience. They should have been able to destroy human defenses through sheer firepower, even if they could not achieve tactical surprise. Instead, Admiral Kethavor found himself fighting an enemy that seemed to know his battle plans better than his own officers did. The first phase of the battle began when the Council fleet attempted to establish orbital bombardment positions around Earth. This was standard doctrine for planetary assault operations. Control the high ground, eliminate surface defenses, then proceed with systematic destruction. But when Kethavor's ships moved into bombardment formation, they discovered that humans had turned the entire solar system into a weapons platform. What appeared to be empty space suddenly erupted with defensive fire from hidden installations. Asteroid mining facilities revealed massive kinetic cannons that had been disguised as ore processing equipment. Scientific research stations launched swarms of guided missiles that had been stored in fake laboratory modules. Even more disturbing, the human weapons seemed specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in Council technology. Hegemony ships found their energy shields failing when struck by weapons that generated precise electromagnetic frequencies. Shard Empire vessels discovered that their crystal armor cracked when exposed to specific sonic resonances. The humans had not just built defenses. They had built defenses tailored to fight this exact enemy fleet. Colonel Ben Hayes commanded the main defensive operations from a command center hidden inside what appeared to be a civilian space habitat. His tactical displays showed alien ship movements in real time, but more importantly, they showed predicted alien responses to human actions. "Execute Plan Gamma 7, Hayes ordered when the Talon Syndicate ships tried to flank the human positions. Target their communication arrays first, then disable their navigation systems. The attack proceeded exactly as Hayes had predicted. Talon ships were vulnerable to electronic warfare because their computer systems used rigid programming that could not adapt to unexpected inputs. Human cyber weapons infected their networks and turned their own equipment against them. Within minutes, Talon ships were firing on each other because their targeting systems had been reprogrammed to identify friendly vessels as enemies. Captain Lisa Park led the mobile defense forces from her flagship, the Defiant. Her ships were outnumbered 50-1, but they fought with tactics that seemed impossible. Park's vessels could predict where enemy ships would be before the aliens made their maneuvers. They fired weapons at empty space, then watched as alien ships arrived exactly where the weapons were waiting for them. How are they doing this? Admiral Kethvor demanded when his tactical officers reported yet another impossible human victory. The answer came from intercepted human communications. The humans were not just fighting the Council fleet. They were fighting specific tactical scenarios that they had been studying and practicing for months. Dr. Carol Stevens had developed computer simulations of galactic military doctrine based on intelligence gathered from various sources. Human military commanders had been practicing battles against virtual Council fleets for over a year. They had fought this exact battle hundreds of times in simulation. They knew how each alien species would respond to specific threats. They had tested thousands of tactical variations and identified the optimal strategies for defeating superior forces. The real battle was just the final examination. For tactics they had already mastered. Major Alex Chen's weapons performed even better than expected. His laboratories had produced devices that incorporated weaknesses the humans had identified through theoretical analysis. But when the weapons were used against real alien targets, they proved to be even more effective than simulations had predicted. The Veltar command ship suffered critical damage when hit by weapons that exploited a structural weakness in their hull design. The weakness existed because Veltar ships were built using manufacturing techniques that prioritized efficiency over durability. Humans had deduced this weakness by studying Veltar, psychology, and economic priorities. They had never seen a Veltar ship before the battle, but they had built weapons specifically designed to destroy Veltar vessels. The same pattern repeated across the entire Council fleet. Each species discovered that humans had developed countermeasures for vulnerabilities they did not even know they possessed, but the most devastating human capability was their ability to adapt. During the battle itself, when Admiral Kethvor attempted to use new tactics that were not in standard military doctrine, human forces adjusted their responses within minutes. They analyzed alien innovations in real time and developed countermeasures faster than the aliens could implement their new strategies. Commander Rick Martinez coordinated the adaptation process from his orbital command platform. His teams monitored every alien action and transmitted tactical updates to all human forces simultaneously. Hegemony forces are attempting to use their mining lasers as weapons, Martinez reported. Adjust shield frequencies to compensate. New defensive parameters are being distributed now. Human ships throughout the solar system immediately reconfigured their defenses to counter the improvised alien weapons. The adaptation took less than 5 minutes. By the time Hegemony forces were ready to use their new tactics, human defenses had already been modified to neutralize them. The battle reached its turning point when Admiral Kethvor realized that his fleet was not just losing. It was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to understand galactic warfare better than species that had been fighting for millennia. He ordered a general retreat, hoping to preserve enough ships to warn the Council about human capabilities, but the humans had anticipated this decision too. Captain Lisa Park's Mobile forces had positioned themselves along all the major escape routes from the solar system. When alien ships tried to retreat, they found their paths blocked by human vessels that had been waiting for them. The retreat became a rout as desperate alien commanders tried increasingly desperate tactics to escape the solar system. Some ships attempted to hide among asteroids. Others tried to use civilian vessels as shields. A few even attempted to surrender. The humans accepted surrenders but continued to pursue ships that tried to escape. They wanted some council vessels to survive and return to their home worlds, but they wanted to control exactly which ships escaped and what information they carried. President Janet Morrison explained the strategy during a secure communication with Seth Kari. "We need the galactic civilizations to understand what happened here," she said. "But we want them to understand it correctly. Fear is useful, but panic is dangerous." The humans were managing their victory to achieve specific political objectives. They wanted to deter future attacks while avoiding a galaxy-wide war that would force them to fight multiple enemies simultaneously. When the battle ended, Admiral Kethvor's surviving ships were allowed to leave the solar system, carrying carefully selected intelligence about human capabilities. The information was designed to convince the Galactic Council that attacking humanity was futile while suggesting that peaceful coexistence might be possible. But Zethkari knew that the political calculations were based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what had just happened. The Galactic Council had not just failed to destroy humanity. They had provided humans with detailed intelligence about galactic military capabilities, tactical doctrines, and political structures. The humans now knew exactly how strong their potential enemies were. They had captured examples of advanced alien technology. They had demonstrated that they could defeat superior forces using tactics that galactic civilizations could not counter. Most importantly, they had learned that galactic civilizations were willing to commit genocide against species they considered threatening. The failed attack had not eliminated the human threat. It had taught humanity that they needed to become much more dangerous very quickly. As Zethkari watched human ships salvage alien technology from the battle wreckage, he realized that the real war was just beginning. The humans were no longer preparing to defend themselves against galactic civilizations. They were preparing to conquer them. The humans were not just dangerous because they could win battles. They were dangerous because they could win the peace that followed, and they were offering that victory to anyone willing to abandon the old ways of fear and domination. The galaxy would never be the same. Looking back at Luna Station as his shuttle departed Zeth, 6 months after the failed genocide attempt, Zethkari received a message that changed everything he thought he understood about galactic politics. It came from President Janet Morrison herself, transmitted through diplomatic channels that officially did not exist. "Commander Zethkari, the United Earth government formally invites you to attend a diplomatic conference on Luna Station. We believe it is time for honest discussion between our species." The invitation was remarkable for several reasons. First, humans had built Luna Station in just 4 months using technology salvaged from the Council fleet. Second, they were treating Zethkari as an official representative of the Veltar people, despite his status as a military observer. Third, they were assuming that peaceful negotiations were possible despite the recent attempted extermination. But most importantly, the invitation indicated that humans understood galactic politics well enough to conduct formal diplomacy. Zethkari accepted the invitation and traveled to Luna Station in his personal shuttle. What he found there shocked him more than any battle he had witnessed. Luna Station was not just a diplomatic facility. It was a demonstration of human technological capabilities that exceeded anything in the Galactic Council's databases. The station incorporated design elements from dozens of different alien civilizations, but improved beyond original specifications. Human engineers had taken the best features from each technology and combined them in ways that created unprecedented capabilities. But more impressive than the technology was the political situation at the station. Representatives from 17 different species were already present for the conference. These were not Galactic Council members. They were the liberated civilizations that humans had helped free from hegemony control, plus several other species that had been contacted by human diplomatic missions. President Morrison met Zethkari at the docking bay. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and intelligent eyes. Her manner was polite but confident, like someone who held strong cards in a diplomatic negotiation. "Thank you for coming, Commander," Morrison said. "We have much to discuss." The main conference room contained representatives from species that had never cooperated before. Former hegemony slaves sat alongside independent civilizations that had remained neutral during recent conflicts. Several species were present that the Galactic Council had considered too primitive for diplomatic contact, but all of them were now allied with humanity. "The galaxy is changing," Morrison began the conference. "The old power structures maintained by the Galactic Council are failing. We represent a new approach to interstellar relations." She activated a holographic display that showed the political situation across known space. The hegemony had lost control of 3 entire sectors. The Talon Syndicate was facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. Even the supposedly stable Shard Empire was experiencing internal conflicts as subject species demanded greater autonomy. "The Council genocide attempt failed for one simple reason," Morrison continued. "They fundamentally misunderstood what makes humans dangerous. We are not threatening because of our weapons or our tactics. We are threatening because we offer other species something the Council never provided." "What is that?" asked Ambassador Crixtal of the former hegemony slaves. "Hope," Morrison replied. "Hope that advanced civilizations do not have to be ruled by fear. Hope that weaker species can defend themselves against stronger ones. Hope that the galaxy can be organized around cooperation instead of domination." Zethkari listened to the discussion with growing amazement. The humans were not just conducting diplomacy. They were reshaping the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. For thousands of years, interstellar relations had been based on a simple principle. Strong species conquered weaker ones. Advanced civilizations dominated primitive ones. The Galactic Council maintained peace by ensuring that the strongest powers controlled everyone else. But humans had demonstrated that this system could be defeated. Weaker species could become stronger by adopting human tactics and technology. Primitive civilizations could defend themselves against advanced enemies by learning human innovations. Most importantly, species that cooperated with each other could become more powerful than species that tried to conquer each other. Dr. Carol Stevens presented the technical aspects of the new alliance. Human engineers were sharing advanced technology with all member species, but they were not simply giving away finished products. They were teaching other civilizations how to innovate and adapt. "We provide the initial designs," Stevens explained, "but each species modifies the technology to suit their own capabilities and needs. The result is that every member civilization becomes more advanced while maintaining their unique characteristics." The approach was revolutionary. Traditional galactic powers hoarded their technology to maintain advantages over potential enemies. Humans were deliberately spreading their most advanced capabilities to create stronger allies. Major Alex Chen demonstrated some of the results. Former hegemony slaves had combined human weapons technology with their own biological enhancements to create defensive systems that were more effective than anything either species could have built alone. Independent civilizations had merged human manufacturing techniques with their unique resource bases to develop industrial capabilities that rivaled those of major galactic powers. Even primitive species had used human educational methods to accelerate their technological development by centuries. The Council model assumes that galactic civilization is a zero-sum competition, Chen observed. If one species becomes stronger, other species must become weaker. But human experience suggests that cooperation can make everyone stronger simultaneously. Captain Lisa Park explained the military implications. The new alliance did not maintain large standing armies like traditional galactic powers. Instead, they had created a distributed defense network that could respond to threats faster than conventional military forces. Each member species contributed defensive capabilities that complemented those of other members. No single species could be eliminated by targeted attack because their functions could be assumed by allies. Traditional powers build massive fleets to project force across the galaxy, Park said. "We have built a system where every inhabited world can defend itself and support the defense of other worlds." But the most significant presentation came from Colonel Ben Hayes, who had been promoted to Secretary of Interstellar Defense. Hayes revealed intelligence that explained why the Council genocide attempt had failed so completely. Humans had not just been preparing to fight galactic civilizations, They had been preparing to transform galactic civilization itself. We knew that first contact would probably be hostile, Hayes explained. But we also knew that violence alone could not solve the underlying problems that made galactic politics unstable. Human strategic planning had always assumed that defeating the Council fleet would be only the first step in a longer process. The real objective was to create an alternative to the Council system that other species would prefer. Fear-based domination only works as long as the dominated species have no alternatives, Hayes continued. Once we demonstrated that advanced civilizations could be defeated, we needed to offer something better than revenge. The new alliance was that alternative. Species that joined gained access to human technology and tactical knowledge. But more importantly, they gained protection from traditional galactic powers that might try to punish them for defying the established order. President Morrison concluded the conference with an offer that shocked Zethkari. We invite the Veltar people to join our alliance, she said, not as subjects or junior partners, but as full members with equal voice in our decisions. The offer was unprecedented. Humans were inviting a species that had participated in the genocide attempt to become part of their political system. Why? Zethkari asked. My people tried to help destroy yours. Because you chose to warn us instead of following orders, Morrison replied. Because you understood that genocide was wrong even when your government ordered it. Because your people are capable of learning and changing. She activated a new display showing Veltar space. Your civilization is facing internal conflicts. Because younger generations question the policies that led to the failed attack on Earth. We can help you resolve those conflicts peacefully. The offer was tempting but dangerous. If Zethkari's people joined the Human Alliance, they would be choosing sides in what was becoming a galactic civil war. What happens to species that refuse your offer? Zethkari asked. Nothing, Morrison said. We do not force anyone to join us. But we also do not allow anyone to force others to stay away. The implication was clear. The Human Alliance would defend any species that wanted to join, regardless of opposition from traditional galactic powers. As Zethkari prepared to return to Veltar space with the human offer, he realized that his original mission had failed completely. He had been sent to observe a primitive species at war. Instead, he had witnessed the birth of a new galactic civilization.